Hello, welcome back to Farmer Talk. Well, we're up in the woods with Hugo, and it's about time we had a good close look at the most useful bit of kit we have here on the farm, and it is this. As I trip up, it's our Kubota RTV 900X, and oh, blimey. Where would we be without this? Pretty hacked off, I have to say. Bit of a history lesson here, and go back 40-50 years and how do farmers get around fields. And it was either on a tractor, which made a bit of a mess, or if you could afford it, a Land Rover. It wasn't a Defender then, it was a Series 1, Series 2, whatever you. And I say the tractors made a bit of a mess. Well, yeah, it was pretty easy to see where a Land Rover had been back in the day, and boy did they make a mess. Yes, you could get around, but wasn't great. Then some bright spark invented not quads, but they came out as trikes to start with, but everybody who rode one died, so they thought they'd put four wheels on, and that was the quad. And to livestock farmers, certainly in UK, I think all over the world, that was just a game changer, because here was something that could get pretty economically. I mean, they ran on petrol, which was a bit of a pain. Anywhere you wanted, pretty much. You could, if you got stuck in a quad, then you either needed new tyres or it was pretty wet. But quads had a bit of a problem. You can't carry that much on one. I mean, compared to walking somewhere, they're frigging brilliant. But a bit limited. And the second thing is you're open to the elements, and on a lovely day like this, that's fine. But, and I can vouch from bitter experience, going a long way on a quad in the winter is not much fun. Ugh. Now, the carrying capacity, and that's where these things came in. And this is a clue in the name, RTV, rough terrain vehicle. You could call it a UTV, utility vehicle, because here, I'll switch the camera around here. Let's just have a look. Okay, let's have a closer look at this thing. If I come up the side here, can I get, you see the format of the layout of the thing. 4 fat tyres, purpose-built chassis, and they've grown in size. These things were really light to start with, but there's a clue, as you can see, with the cab. I'll come on to that because that's a really important part of it. And carrying capacity, and you see on the back here, there, the body, and weather protection are the two critical killer features over a quad. Quad wins on lightness and weight and ability to get in really extreme places. This thing just slaughters a quad on the practicality side of things, i.e. this back here, this can hold 500 kilos, half a ton, and I'm pretty sure at times I've had more than that in it, and it's pretty good at towing as well. 900cc engine. I'll tip the back and we'll have a look. So I did say that it tips, didn't I? So, well, Hugo's had the call sign. Start the engine. So, little lever down here, and it's all hydraulic, and then radio and everything else. The tipping bit is so useful. These things have developed so much, and they used to be manual tipping, etc, etc. Okay, now we've got the body tipped. You can see in here at the engine, 3-cylinder 900cc diesel engine just tucked under there, and that's coupled to a hydrostatic transmission, all hydraulic, that works with a 2-speed gearbox, sort of manual gearbox. Ranges you select. You could use either. Tough going, really steep hills, you're in low, or big loads, you're in low. And the significance of the hydrostatic transmission for me, quite a few of these utility vehicles, RTVs, have CVT transmissions, basically variable belts. And with the hydrostatic, you get terrific engine braking and control. They're a bit more sluggish. They're not as quick as the CVTs, and it depends where you're. We live on really steep hills, so the hydrostatic's real important to us. Yeah, popped it back down again. So here's the bed, and it is just so useful. The obvious one is carrying things around, but it could be anything, and I use it so many times as a workbench. It's, you know, if there's a gate to mend or a hole to dig, you just take any tools you want, chuck in here, and I suppose I could say photography. It's got camera bags in it more often than not. But the main thing that it gets used for is logging, i.e. here in the woods there is so much work to do. The wood needs thinning out big time. But as we heat everything with wood, we get through an enormous amount of logs, and this thing is pretty much, I mean, that's the only way of getting here. But we used to have fairly big tractors here, and it's such a small place. It's 80 acres, but really steep land and awkward to get to. The problem with a tractor and trailer, which seems obvious, is fine until you load up getting places. And as you can see here, I've looked around at the tracks through the woods, it's a problem by the time you get a tractor, and the mess you make, but also what it can pull. A tractor can get up a hill pretty well with its big cleated tires, not these low damage, low ground pressure things. But when it's got to pull a trailer of any significance, you're in big trouble. And load it with logs, you just can't do it. This thing, I can trot up, come down to the farm, trot up here, log, I say half a ton. It's probably 200-300 kilos of logs ready to go on the fire. And I do that up here in the woods. Load up this, probably takes however long it takes, and then straight back down and stack them. So all the work is done out here. Often when you're logging, you cut the tree down and then cord it and then load it onto a big trailer. I can't do that because of the hills, and I'm on my own. And that's why this thing is just, it's great. Absolutely fantastic. Right, now, the new model, which, I don't know, this has been out 3 or 4 years now, I suppose. We had one of the old models, had it for 11 years, so that lasted, you know, that did pretty well. This thing is improved in every way, though. One of the main things is completely independent suspension. You can see that there, where it comes out in the wishbones, upper and lower wishbones underneath there. And it gave it much higher ground clearance. And I can't remember, it's 10 or 11 inches, which is about 300 mil of ground clearance. Really useful, really good towing. Everything about this thing is really workmanlike. And yeah, back end of the gearbox there, full lighting. And around the front here, now the old model had its radiator stuffed in front of the engine. It was terrible, and they suffered from overheating. This thing has Hugo, you gonna clean it? Radiator at the front, bit like a car. And you see here, quite amazingly, I mean, when a manufacturer has a problem with overheating, which Kubota did with the previous model, they often go overkill, well, which is quite good news. And I run around with this blanked most of the time, simply to get some heat into the engine, which is a nice problem to have. Really good roll bull bar at the front here, and it seems simple, but really useful hitch here. We have got it stuck, and the way to get it out is, well, I use a 360 digger, because when you've got this stuck, it's usually in a pretty dire situation. Right, more boring bits. Well, let's have a look at the cab, and this side of it is hugely significant for me. It's like tractors have got, where first they had and it's the evolution is similar with these. It took a while with first there were safety frames, because if the things tipped over, then they thought, well, we better put a roof on, and then that resonated and made loads of noise, and so you were protected from the weather, but it was pretty horrible to be in. And like tractors, etc., they're developing. This one has, I am really impressed with the cab on this. It's a Mauser, well, Kubota will say it's theirs, but it's a Mauser cab, a German. And we'll have a look around this. If I whiz the camera through here, and you just see here the pillars. These, I used to joke that they used to be chicken shed. They're cabs on these type of vehicle. Well, actually, one or two models even now, but I've come on immensely. And I think for me, this is the best one on the market, because look at the glass area. I mean, I run with the door off this side. There is a door for this side if I want it, and you see the screen here pops up and down. But as I pop that down, look at the size of that pillar there, and it's just all glass, and it's just brilliant for seeing and being in. It's such a nice place to be. Two comfy seats, hydrostatic steering, handbrakes up here now. Got good lights on this one, LED lights all around. Two pedals, because it's hydrostatic. And then, wow, aren't you impressed with that? Very simple. Else, if I switch that on, and the radio will come on, but I'll just pop that off. So very simple. Fuel, speed, hours it's done, warning lights. Quite useful on this one. Whoops, switch that off. Shush. So work that out. It's got audible warnings for overheating and things, and that's quite useful. Glove box, and don't laugh, but drinks holders, and they're quite useful. As I say, the screen pops out, and then up the top here, radio on this one, and that just makes so much difference when you're ambling around on your own. It's nice and neat. Heater, fan, wiper, and vents, little vents everywhere. Tend not to use those. And then this lighting, we've got normal lighting, and then I've got these LED lights front and back, flashing beacon, mirrors. It's road legal, so we've got indicators. Yeah, so overall, and I think it doesn't look impressive, but I like the looks of it. It's workmanlike. Have you spotted I like the thing? Okay, well, we'll go for a little drive around and give you an idea of where we can. It's pretty obvious it doesn't go anywhere. It will go loads further than a Land Rover anywhere. If you took the best off-road car, whatever, a Wrangler, a Defender, etc., put it on the right tires, etc., it still couldn't go where this will go in boggy wet conditions. And it's just down to physics, really. So, as I say, not the fastest thing. That engine develops around 20 horsepower. And I can see why they went with the 1100. I haven't tried one of those. I sort of don't want to, because this is fine for working. I mean, it really is. But it's steady up the hills. And it's probably, on the road, it's 25 miles an hour flat out. The hydrostatic one, you know, I mentioned the CVT. This hydrostatic, if you're on the hills around here, on the roads, it'll slow up quite quickly. And I fully understand quite a few keepers on shoots and things, they wouldn't buy this. They want the CVT transmission because it's faster on the road, etc. I prefer this on my farm. I don't go on the roads much. I don't travel that much distance. And I want a good, I love the engine braking and a good, useful thing. And it's just with that cab as well. That's a killer feature for me. I love that cab. It's so easy to just walk in, walk out, do what you want and get on with the job. Oh, and the dogs quite like going for a run with it. So what's this thing like to drive? Well, easy peasy. As already mentioned, I've got full hydrostatic steering, so that holds its position. So if I let go, that's pretty much where it goes. And that's great, particularly going across hills. And quads have come in with power steering now. And you don't really think about it until you ride across a hill and you constantly have to keep steering up into the hill. That can get quite tiring. You have to remember, horribly biased owner review or comments. And I bought this as a working machine, but I wanted it to be a pleasant working machine. And that's where, continuing, we'll go on about the transmission and the engine braking that this hydrostatic gives. Fights our way through the jungle here, is really important and a big safety feature. Basically, if you let your foot off the throttle, you get terrific engine braking, which when they're not going to get into who's got the steepest hill, but let's put it this way, if I got it wrong on one of our steeper parts, I'm not sure I'd like the outcome. So yeah, what else have we got? Four-wheel braking all round. I think Kubota call it dynamic braking. Dynamic. It's got brakes. They're okay. Tied in with the transmission. You don't use the brakes that often, actually. Four-wheel drive and a lockable, good old-fashioned diff lock, a pedal under my left foot here on the rear, and that I've used many times, and just watching that rear camera. And on the front, a limited slip diff. I'm sure it does something. You can't beat a locking diff, and that's why I like the rear. The rear has got me out of trouble. Press the thing down here, the rear diff locks. End of story. No electronics, no, pure grip. I'd like that on the front, to be honest. And here we go. So, and those, the drive then comes out through, once again, I've got to go under some bushes here. So what will that camera on the back do? Oh, it bends over. Just a minute. Yeah, so those are big fat tyres, and we run them about, I run them about 10 psi. Can go lower. I have had them, because they're tubeless tyres, I have had them roll off the rims. It's a balancing act between not making a mess, which is what I'm really touchy about, and not having punctures. Let's wiggle through here. Okay, let's do a bit on the why this. And here is a really nudgy, that was a really nasty little bit there. You won't have really seen it on the camera, and I did have to pop the diff lock in. I know that it would have slipped a bit there, but just trundled through. And here, this isn't the steepest slope in the world, but it is uphill. And if I were with a tractor or anything pulling a trailer, here's where you're in trouble, because you just cannot, a vehicle on these slopes has enough problems with itself. Pulling a trailer obviously causes more problems, and so that's what I found when we used tractors and trailers. This thing, if I've got 300, 400 or more kilos of logs in the back, it almost helps it in that it's all more weight on the driving wheels. So yeah, happy days. The competition, yeah, as I say, I didn't blindly just buy this new model. We've had it a couple of years now. I don't, where does time go? And do we still have 2 dogs? Probably not. And there's quite a few around now. As I say, important things for me were the practicality, the hydrostatic transmission, and the comfort of this cab. And the competition doesn't, this is the best one in those departments, I think. John Deere, I think they might even be market leader in sales numbers, certainly in UK. And that's got the CVT, the belt transmission, which isn't as good on the steep hills. It's loads nippier, and I fully understand if you've bought one or the sales. And it's a nice little machine. But for me, this has extra room in it, which is, if I could make this bigger, I would. And so, what else? I've put some soundproofing in this one. These types of machine are never the quietest. This one's a hell of a lot quieter than our previous one, I have to say. And now this is at a level that's not bad at all. Quite happily hear the radio, very pleasantly. Well, it depends what song's on, of course. And heating is okay. The whole heating comes from the top, which is handy for the windows. In the winter, you tend to have cold feet, but that's a minor point. Seating's fine, loads of places to put bits and pieces, and yeah, that engine, 3-cylinder 900cc, and it's about 20 horsepower. I think 21 horsepower rings a bell. And just stop and see if Hannah catches up here. And the new 1100 is 24 horsepower. I think that's the only difference. Now, it'd be nice to have that, but it's not worth changing this. And I haven't tried it, so I don't know that obviously a bit more power would be handier. So there you go. RTV 900X, most useful thing on the farm. And having gone through several options, we've got another dog here. Let's amble across the top. Having gone through several options, yeah, reliability, the previous one was very, very good, and you tend to go with that, don't you? This one, touch wood, so far hasn't been a problem. A mechanic, I had it serviced by the dealer, and a mechanic overzealously, it had an oil leak, very small oil leak, and it was due to an oil filter being over tightened, basically. Can't blame the machine for that. Monies, they're not cheap, these things, and without cutting to the chase, I think pre-VAT you've probably got to pay in the 16-17 region. That's thousands of pounds, and then VAT on top of that. It's business tool, so we claim the VAT back on it, and that's not cheap. And a quad, you'll get a nice quad for £6,000–7,000 pounds, and that you can't really compare this with a quad. One, because of its capabilities, and also the quad's capabilities and the cost. You can't compare something that costs well over twice the price. You know, it's very, very difficult. Personally, and out here, a quad wouldn't be useless for me. I've owned them, but the load carrying of this is just the killer feature. And we live in Devon. Now, if you noticed, brilliant day. However, it's not always like this. And to be in the wet weather, cold weather, this just is heaven, frankly. Well, it's probably not as nice as heaven, but you get my gist. But just coming down a track here. I haven't been down here for a while. And we've had some gales, so this might not be my wisest decision. But this is it's in its element here, and it's thinning the wood. We get so many trees falling down, and this is quite steep coming down here, quite a narrow track, and because this thing has such a light footprint, that just retains the track surface. These tracks are lovely to walk on, but that's because we use something like this. So yeah, there you go. But I could come here wherever. If I needed, say there's a tree here, I just come up here with the chainsaws, stop, leave the radio. Well, you can't hear the radio with the chainsaws, but I could, and work away. If a shower comes along, hop in here, and I can have a flask of coffee and the ever important chocolate biscuits, and yeah, happy days. Even have the heater on. Morning, sheeps. Got plenty to eat and just about get around there. Turning circle's really tight, and yeah, this is how it's used. So that I could have a load of logs in the back. I could be just ambling around for the heck of it, taking the dogs for a run. Oh yeah, taking the dogs for a run. You see, yeah. Normally that's good exercise, and well, it is for the dogs anyway. Just for a little, it won't mean much, but just down here there's a really nudgy slope. This isn't a what's better than what, but it gives an idea of where this thing can go. And the slopes, as I've said, I mean, we love the place because of the hills and the slopes. I'd really struggle to live in flat lands again. And so coming up here on the right, now you wouldn't normally think, I mean, I have been up here before, so I know it can do it. Well, I hope I do. So I'd just pop it into low range there, and that's all you do. And then come around here. Now, I will need the diff lock, I know that much. The dog's not sure. So it's really twisting the chassis here. So I'll just wait till it's roughly straight. Pop the diff lock on now, which has just clocked in, and this is very steep. It always amuses me, and it is just like a little mountain goat, just but no electronics, as I said, and it's lovely old school proper four-wheel drive. As I say, I'd like if I could have a locking diff on the front, brilliant, but as it is, really happy. So with that view, I'll bid you farewell, and thanks for listening to my rambling on the Kubota RTV 900X. Don't forget the X. We always need X. Yeah. Bye for now.